They say love is unconditional, but Derek proved that love has a price tag, and Sarah couldn't afford it. Standing in their freezing, mold-infested apartment, Derek didn't just hand her divorce papers. He laughed in her face, mocking her for being dead weight, while he chased a promotion and a younger woman. He threw her out on the street with nothing but a trash bag of clothes, convinced she was destined to rot in poverty. He didn't know that 3 states away, a gavel had just come down in a private probate court. The ink was already drying on the documents that would make the woman he'd just discarded the sole owner of the Sterling Holloway Trust, a real estate portfolio worth $1.3 billion. This is the story of the man who sold his winning lottery ticket right before the draw, and the woman who bought them the bank. The heating vent rattled, coughed, and then died completely. The silence that followed was heavy, colder than the wind whipping through the cracked window pane of apartment 4B. Sarah pulled her threadbare cardigan tighter around her chest. It was a Tuesday in November, and the temperature in Chicago had dropped to single digits. On the kitchen counter, a laminate surface that was peeling at the corners like sunburned skin, sat a small pile of coins. Quarters, dimes, and an embarrassing number of pennies. She counted them for the 3rd time. $4.87. "It's not enough," she whispered, her voice cracking. She needed milk. She needed bread. But mostly, she needed to pay the overdue electric bill that was sitting next to the coins, glowing with a menacing red "Final Notice" stamp. The front door slammed open, startling her. Derek stomped in, bringing a gust of freezing air and the smell of stale office coffee and expensive cologne, a scent she knew he hadn't bought for himself. "Freezing in here," Derek grumbled, not looking at her. He kicked his snow-covered boots off, letting them land wherever. "Why isn't the heat on, Sarah? The pilot light went out again," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "And I didn't want to push the thermostat past 60. We can't afford it, Derek." Derek scoffed, walking past her to the fridge. He opened it, stared at the empty shelves, and slammed it shut. The magnets, a collection of save-the-date invites to weddings they couldn't afford to attend, rattled. Derek turned his eyes cold. "There isn't a we in the bank account, Sarah. There's me depositing my paycheck, and there's you draining it." "I was laid off," Sarah reminded him, the shame burning her cheeks. "The library closed. I've applied to 20 places this week alone. I have an interview at the diner on 5th tomorrow." "A diner?" Derek sneered. "My wife a waitress. God, you really have no ambition. Do you? You're just stagnant. While I'm out there clawing my way up at Oak Haven Logistics, trying to impress the VPs, you're here counting pennies." He saw the pile on the counter. He reached out and flicked a stack of quarters. They scattered onto the dirty linoleum floor with a chaotic clatter. Sarah gasped, dropping to her knees to gather them. Every quarter mattered. Every cent was a lifeline. "Look at you," Derek said, his voice dripping with disgust. "Crawling on the floor. It's pathetic." Sarah stopped, a quarter clutched in her hand. She looked up at him. 6 years. They had been married for 6 years. She had supported him while he finished his MBA. She had worked double shifts at the call center so he could take an unpaid internship that led to his current job. She had sacrificed her credit score, her savings, and her dreams of finishing her art degree, all to build a foundation for him. "I am crawling," Sarah said quietly, standing up. "Because I am trying to keep a roof over our heads while you spend $300 on client dinners that show up on the credit card statement as the Sapphire Lounge." The room went silent. Derek's face didn't show guilt. It showed rage. He hated being caught, but he hated being confronted even more. "You checking up on me?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "I balance the checkbook, Derek. I have to." "Well, you won't have to worry about the checkbook anymore." Derek reached into his leather briefcase, a gift she had bought him 2 Christmases ago by selling her grandmother's locket, and pulled out a thick manila envelope. He tossed it onto the table right on top of the final notice bill. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. The cold in the apartment suddenly felt insignificant compared to the chill spreading through her chest. "Derek, I'm done, Sarah. I'm done with the poverty. I'm done with the struggle. And frankly, I'm done with you. You're an anchor. I'm trying to sail and you're dragging me to the bottom of the ocean." "We promised," she stammered, tears welling up. "For richer or for poorer. We are in the poorer part right now. But we can—" "I'm not in the poorer part," Derek interrupted, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. "I just got the promotion. Junior VP of Operations, $85,000 a year, starting base, plus bonuses." Sarah stared at him. You got the promotion? When?" "Last week. And you didn't tell me we've been eating ramen for a week while you knew you had a raise." "I didn't tell you," Derek said, stepping closer, looming over her. "Because I didn't want you to think you were entitled to any of it. That money is for my new life. A life that fits a VP. A life with someone who fits the image." He didn't have to say her name. Jessica. The marketing coordinator he'd been texting late at night. The one who wore designer heels and laughed at his jokes too loudly at the company Christmas party. "You have 24 hours to get out," Derek said, checking his watch. "I'm having the locks changed tomorrow afternoon. The lease is in my name now. I spoke to the landlord this morning." "Where am I supposed to go?" Sarah cried, the panic finally setting in. "I have no money, Derek. You can't just throw me out in winter." "Not my problem," he said, grabbing his car keys. "Go to a shelter. Go to your parents. Oh, wait, they're gone. Figure it out, Sarah. You're a survivor, right? Survive somewhere else." He walked out. The door slammed. Sarah stood alone in the freezing apartment, clutching the divorce papers. The man she had given everything to had just declared her a liability. She had less than $5, no job, and nowhere to go. She sank to the floor and wept, unaware that her tears were the last she would ever shed over a lack of money. The next 24 hours were a blur of humiliation and despair. Sarah packed her life into 2 battered suitcases and a heavy-duty trash bag. It was pathetic how little she actually owned. Derek had claimed the TV, the furniture, even the coffee maker. She took her clothes, her sketchbooks, and a small box of keepsakes. She dragged her belongings down the 4 flights of stairs, her breath puffing in the icy air. When she reached the sidewalk, she saw Derek's car pull up. He wasn't alone. Jessica was in the passenger seat, wearing a white faux fur coat and oversized sunglasses. Looking like she belonged in a magazine, not in front of a crumbling apartment complex. Derek rolled down the window. "Keys!" Sarah walked over, her hand trembling. She dropped the keys into his palm. "Did you clean the place?" he asked sharply. "I swept," Sarah whispered. "Good. Don't call me. My lawyer will handle the rest. If you try to contact me at work, I'll file a restraining order." "Bye, sweetie," Jessica chirped from the passenger seat, blowing a mocking kiss. "Good luck with whatever this is." Derek laughed, rolled up the window, and drove off, spraying slush onto Sarah's jeans. She walked. She didn't know where else to go. She walked until her fingers were numb inside her thin gloves. She found a 24-hour laundromat on 8th Street that was warm and smelled of dryer sheets. The attendant, a kind older man named Mr. Henderson, saw her suitcases and didn't say anything. He just pointed to the plastic chairs in the back. "You can stay till morning, miss," he grunted. "Just don't make a mess." "Thank you," she choked out. She sat in the hard orange chair, watching the clothes tumble in the dryers, round and round, just like her thoughts. How did I get here? What did I do wrong? Around 3:00 a.m., her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She almost didn't answer it. Bill collectors had been hounding her for weeks, but a strange instinct made her swipe right. "Hello." Her voice was hoarse. "Is this Sarah Elizabeth Hayes, formerly Sarah Sterling?" The voice was deep, authoritative, and distinctly British. "Who is this?" Sarah asked, clutching the phone. "If this is about the credit card debt—" "This is not a debt collection. Mrs. Hayes, my name is Arthur Pembroke. I am a senior partner at Pembroke, Stone and Associates, based in London. I have been trying to locate you for 3 weeks. It seems your contact information was intentionally obstructed." "Obstructed? Yes. We sent several certified letters to your residence, but they were returned as refused." Derek. He must have seen them. He must have thrown them away or sent them back to keep her in the dark. I didn't see them," Sarah said, exhaustion making her slur her words. "Look, Mr. Pembroke, I'm in a laundromat. I'm homeless. I really can't deal with whatever this is right now. Mrs. Hayes, please listen to me. Carefully." Pembroke's voice softened, losing its professional edge for a moment. "I am not asking for money. I am trying to give it to you. Do you know the name Silas Hawthorne?" The name triggered a faint memory. "My mother. She mentioned a Silas once. Her estranged uncle, I think he lived in Europe. She said he was a mean old man who hated the family." "He was a difficult man." "Yes," Pembroke agreed. "He was also a man who possessed a significant amount of property. Silas Hawthorne passed away last month in Zurich. He had no children. His siblings are deceased. He spent the last 10 years of his life investigating his lineage to find a suitable heir who had not, in his words, been corrupted by the rot of greed." Sarah looked around the laundromat. A homeless man was sleeping in the corner. The fluorescent lights buzzed. "Okay," she said dully. "So what?" "He left me a few $1,000s that would really help right now, actually." There was a pause on the line. A heavy, pregnant silence. "Mrs. Hayes," Pembroke said, his voice dropping an octave. "Silas Hawthorne was the majority shareholder of the Hawthorne Blackwood Real Estate Group. He owned 3 skyscrapers in Manhattan, 2 commercial districts in London, a resort in the Maldives, and roughly 40,000 acres of undeveloped land in Montana. The assets have been liquidated and consolidated into a trust." "I don't understand," Sarah whispered. "You are the sole beneficiary," Pembroke said. "After taxes, legal fees, and the charitable deductions mandated by the will, the net value of the inheritance is $1.3 billion US. Sarah dropped the phone. It clattered onto the linoleum floor, the battery cover popping off. Mr. Henderson looked up from his newspaper. "You okay, miss?" She scrambled down, her hands shaking so hard she could barely put the battery back in. She pressed the phone to her ear. "Hello, hello." "I am still here, Mrs. Hayes," Pembroke said patiently. "I assume the shock is setting in. I am currently in Chicago. I have a car waiting. I can come to you. Where are you?" I'm at the wash and dry on 8th. She stuttered, But this has to be a scam. This has to be a joke. Is Derek putting you up to this? Is this some sick way to kick me while I'm down? I assure you I do not know a Derek, Pembroke said. But if Derek is the husband you are divorcing, I suggest you do not mention this conversation to him. Not yet. I will be there in 20 minutes. Look for a black Bentley. Sarah hung up. She sat in the orange chair, staring at her reflection in the dark window of a washing machine. She looked broken. Her hair was messy, her eyes red, her clothes cheap. 1.3 billion. The number was too big to comprehend. It was abstract. It was fake. 20 minutes later, a long, sleek black car pulled up to the curb of the laundromat, looking like a spaceship that had landed in a slum. A driver in a suit got out and opened the back door. An older man with silver hair and a tailored wool coat stepped out. He held a briefcase. He walked into the laundromat, ignoring the smell of damp clothes and the staring eyes of Mr. Henderson. He approached Sarah and offered a slight bow. "Mrs. Hayes?" "Yes," she squeaked. "I am Arthur Pembroke." He handed her a card. It was heavy cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing. "We have a lot of paperwork to sign, but first I believe we should get you out of here. I have taken the liberty of booking the presidential suite at the Langham Hotel. It has a fireplace and room service." Sarah stood up. She grabbed her trash bag of clothes. Pembroke gently took it from her hand. "Allow me," he said. Or better yet, he looked at the bag with distaste. "Perhaps we leave this here. You won't be needing these clothes anymore." Sarah looked at the bag that contained the jeans she had worn when Derek told her she was worthless. "No," Sarah said, her voice suddenly finding a steel core she didn't know she had. "Keep the bag. I want to remember." Pembroke smiled a genuine shark-like grin. "Excellent answer. Now shall we go?" As Sarah stepped into the heated leather interior of the Bentley, her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Derek. "Derek. Found a box of your old art supplies in the closet. Threw them in the dumpster. Don't come digging for them." Sarah looked at the message. Then she looked at Pembroke, who was opening a bottle of sparkling water for her. "Mr. Pembroke," she said. "Yes, my dear. Does this inheritance, does it give me power?" Pembroke paused. "Mrs. Hayes, with this kind of capital, you don't just have power. You alter gravity. You can move mountains. Or more specifically, you can buy the mountain and evict everyone living on it." Sarah typed a reply to Derek. "Sarah. Thanks for letting me know. Enjoy the apartment." She hit send, turned off her phone, and watched the city streets blur by. The game had changed, and Derek Sterling had no idea he was playing against the house. The presidential suite at the Langham was larger than the entire apartment complex Sarah had just been evicted from. The floors were marble heated from beneath, and the windows offered a panoramic view of the Chicago skyline, a skyline she now owned a significant piece of. Arthur Pembroke sat at the mahogany dining table, organizing a stack of documents 3 inches thick. Sarah stood by the window wrapped in a plush white robe that cost more than her car. She had just taken a shower that lasted 45 minutes, scrubbing her skin raw, trying to wash away the feeling of the laundromat floor and Derek's cruelty. "The transfer is complete," Pembroke announced, capping his fountain pen. "The liquid assets are in your primary account. The real estate holdings are managed by the trust of which you are the sole trustee. Essentially, Mrs. Hayes, you are now one of the 50 wealthiest women in North America." Sarah turned around. She didn't feel wealthy. She felt hollow. "Mr. Pembroke, why me? Why did Silas pick me?" "Because you struggled," Pembroke said simply. "Silas watched you. He hired private investigators. He saw you work double shifts. He saw you support a husband who didn't appreciate you. He saw you pay off your parents' medical bills instead of buying a house. He wanted someone who understood the value of $1 to control his billions. Pembroke stood up and walked over to her. But now we must address the immediate problem. You are currently legally married to a man who just discarded you. In the state of Illinois, assets acquired during the marriage can be subject to division during divorce. Sarah's eyes widened. You mean Derek could get half after what he did? Pembroke smiled a cold, predatory expression that made Sarah glad he was on her side. Under normal circumstances, perhaps. However, Silas Hawthorne was paranoid. The inheritance is structured as a spendthrift trust, with specific clauses that exclude spouses entirely. Derek cannot touch a penny. However, he can be annoying. He can drag out the divorce. He can try to leverage your newfound status for publicity. I don't want him to know, Sarah said, her voice hardening. Not yet. Agreed. Pembroke nodded. But to do that, you need to stop looking like the victim he threw out. You need armor. The next morning, Sarah didn't wake up to a cold apartment. She woke up to a team of people waiting in her living room. Pembroke had hired the best image consultants in the city. There was Chloe, a stylist who had dressed A-list celebrities for the Met Gala. Henri, a hair artist who charged $1,000 for a trim. And distinct security personnel who stood by the door like statues. Honey, Chloe said, looking Sarah up and down, we are going to burn everything you own, metaphorically. For 6 hours, Sarah was poked, prodded, and transformed. Her mousy, unkempt brown hair was cut into a sharp, sophisticated bob and dyed a rich chocolate shade that caught the light. Her bitten nails were manicured and painted a deep blood red. Then came the clothes. No more polyester blends. Chloe dressed her in a tailored Italian wool coat, in camel a silk blouse in ivory and trousers that fit her so perfectly they looked like a second skin. She put on heels Manolo Blahniks that added 3 inches to her height and a dangerous click to her walk. When Sarah looked in the full-length mirror, she gasped. The woman staring back wasn't the Sarah who counted pennies for milk. This woman looked formidable. She looked like she could fire you just by blinking. How do you feel? Pembroke asked, stepping into the room. I feel... Sarah touched the pearl necklace at her throat. I feel like I'm wearing a costume. It is a costume, Pembroke corrected. It is the costume of power. And now that you are dressed for the part, we have business to attend to. Do you know who owns the building where Oakhaven Logistics rents their office space? Sarah frowned. No. Some holding company sold. The Blackwood Group, Pembroke said, which is now you. You are Derek's landlord, and I believe the lease for Oakhaven Logistics is up for renewal next month. They are desperate to renew. They need more space. They are hosting a strategic partnership gala tonight to woo potential investors. Sarah looked at Pembroke. Is Derek going to be there? He is the new junior VP of operations. He will be leading the presentation. A slow smile spread across Sarah's face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a woman holding a royal flush. Get the car, Arthur. I think I'd like to inspect my property. The Grand Illusions Ballroom was dripping with crystal and gold. It was the kind of venue Derek had always dreamed of belonging to. He stood near the bar, swirling a glass of scotch, feeling the fabric of his new suit. It was a cheap suit compared to what the CEO, Roger Caldwell, was wearing. But Derek felt like a king. You look tense, babe, Jessica purred, sliding her arm through his. She was wearing a red dress that was a little too tight and a little too short for a corporate event. But Derek liked the way the other men looked at her. "I'm not tense," Derek lied. "I'm focused. Tonight makes or breaks my career. If I nail this presentation, Caldwell said he'd put me on the partner track. We're talking 7 figures in 5 years. And the ex," Jessica giggled. "Did you finally stop blowing up your phone?" "Radio silence," Derek smirked. "She's probably crying in a shelter somewhere." I blocked her number. I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. "Mr. Sterling," Roger Caldwell. A portly man with a red face and a booming voice waved him over. "Come here, son. I want you to meet the rep from the Blackwood Group. We finally got a meeting. If we can get them to sign the lease expansion, we're golden." Derek straightened his tie. "I'm ready, sir." "Good. Because the word is the Blackwood Trust just changed hands. Some mysterious heir took over. Nobody knows who it is, but they sent a proxy tonight. We need to impress them." At that moment, the double doors of the ballroom swung open. Usually guests trickled in. But the room went silent as a phalanx of security guards entered, clearing a path. Derek frowned. "Who is that, the mayor?" Then she walked in. She was flanked by Arthur Pembroke on one side and a massive bodyguard on the other. She wore a coat that looked like it cost more than Derek's car, draped over her shoulders. Her heels clicked rhythmically on the parquet floor. She wore large, dark sunglasses, despite it being evening. "That's the proxy," Jessica whispered. "She looks like a movie star." Roger Caldwell was already sweating. "That's the VIP. Everyone looks sharp." The woman stopped in the center of the room. A waiter nervously offered her a glass of champagne. She ignored him. Pembroke leaned in and whispered something to her. She nodded and slowly removed her sunglasses. Derek dropped his glass. It shattered, splashing scotch onto his shoes and Jessica's dress. "What the hell?" Jessica shrieked, jumping back. But Derek didn't hear her. He was staring at the woman across the room. The chocolate hair was different. The makeup was different. The clothes were from a different universe. But he knew those eyes. "Sarah," he whispered. "What did you say?" Caldwell hissed at him. "Clean that up, Sterling." Sarah's eyes scanned the room, bypassing the waiters and the executives until they locked onto Derek. She didn't look angry. She didn't look sad. She looked bored. She began to walk toward them. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Roger Caldwell stepped forward, his hand extended, sweating profusely. "Madam." "Welcome. I am Roger Caldwell, CEO of Oakhaven. We are so honored that the Blackwood Group could—" Sarah walked right past him. She stopped 3 feet from Derek. The room was deadly silent. Everyone was watching. "Hello, Derek," she said. Her voice was smooth, cultured, and devoid of the nervous tremor he was used to. Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Sarah, what are you doing here? How did you get in? Look, if you're here to cause a scene because of the divorce." He lowered his voice to a menacing whisper. "I told you to get lost. You're embarrassing me." Sarah laughed. It was a light, airy sound that chilled his blood. "Embarrassing you, Derek? You're wearing a polyester blend tie to a black tie event. You're doing a fine job of embarrassing yourself." Jessica stepped forward, her hands on her hips. "Excuse me. Who do you think you are? You're the homeless ex-wife. Did you sneak in through the kitchen?" Sarah didn't even look at Jessica. She turned to Arthur Pembroke. Arthur, who is this? I believe this is the marketing assistant Mr. Sterling has been fraternizing with, Pembroke said loudly enough for the board of directors to hear. Roger Caldwell looked between them, confusion turning to horror. Madam, do you know my junior VP? Sarah turned to Caldwell. Know him, Mr. Caldwell? I supported him for 6 years. I paid for his MBA. I ironed his shirts. And yesterday he threw me out on the street with $5 to my name so he could bring his mistress into my home. Gasps rippled through the room. The wives of the board members covered their mouths. That's a lie, Derek shouted, his face turning purple. She's crazy. She's a stalker. Security. Get her out of here. 2 security guards from the venue stepped forward, unsure of what to do. Touch me, Sarah said calmly, and you will be unemployed before you hit the floor. Pembroke stepped forward, handing a business card to Roger Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell, allow me to introduce my client. This is Sarah Elizabeth Hawthorne Sterling. She is the sole beneficiary of the Hawthorne estate, which means she owns the Blackwood Group. Caldwell looked at the card, then at Sarah, then at the ceiling as if praying for deliverance. You own the building. I own the building, Sarah confirmed. I own the parking garage. I own the land this hotel sits on. And I am currently reviewing the lease renewal for Oakhaven Logistics. Derek felt the room spinning. The Hawthorne estate. The billions. Sarah. The woman who clipped coupons. Sarah. Derek stammered, his tone instantly changing from aggression to a pathetic attempt at charm. Baby, wait. Is this real? Why didn't you tell me? I didn't know until you kicked me out, Sarah said. It seems karma has a sense of humor, Derek. But we're married, Derek said, his eyes lighting up with greed. Sarah, look. I was stressed. I didn't mean what I said yesterday. The pressure of the job. You know how I get. We can fix this. We're a team, remember? For richer or for poorer? He reached out to touch her arm. Sarah's bodyguard intercepted Derek's hand, twisting it slightly, forcing Derek to his knees with a pained yelp. Don't touch the merchandise, the bodyguard growled. Sarah looked down at Derek, kneeling on the stained carpet in his cheap suit. We aren't a team, Derek, she said, her voice echoing in the silent ballroom. You filed the petition. You wanted a divorce. I'm just here to make sure you get exactly what you asked for. She turned to Roger Caldwell, who was looking at Derek with pure loathing. Mr. Caldwell, Sarah said pleasantly, I really don't think I can do business with a company that employs a man of such low moral character. It reflects poorly on my brand. Caldwell didn't hesitate for a second. I completely agree, Mrs. Sterling. Completely. He turned to Derek. Sterling, you're fired. Get your things and get Ulshaw out. Now, you can't fire me, Derek screamed, scrambling up. I'm the VP. I have the presentation. You have nothing, Caldwell roared. Get out before I have you arrested for trespassing. Derek looked at Sarah, pleading with his eyes. Sarah, please. My job. My insurance. You can't let them do this. Sarah checked her diamond watch. Actually, I can. I have a dinner reservation at Nobu. Arthur, shall we? She turned on her heel and walked away. As she reached the doors, she paused and looked back at Jessica, who was trying to hide behind a potted plant. Oh, and Jessica, Sarah called out. I hope you like paying rent, because I'm evicting Derek from the apartment tomorrow morning. Have a lovely night. Sarah walked out into the cool night air, leaving chaos in her wake. She got into the back of the Bentley, her heart pounding. How was that? Pembroke asked, offering her a water. It was... Sarah took a deep breath. It was a start, but he still thinks this is just about a job. He doesn't know what's coming next. And what is coming next? Sarah looked out the window at the city lights. He destroyed my credit. He isolated me from my friends. He tried to erase me. Firing him is just the appetizer, Arthur. Now I want to serve the main course. The Starlight Motel on the outskirts of Chicago was a far cry from the luxury apartment Derek had envisioned for his new life as a VP. The neon sign buzzed incessantly, a flickering red light that bled through the thin curtains of room 112. Derek sat on the edge of the sagging mattress, staring at his phone. The screen was cracked. He'd thrown it against the wall after checking his bank balance. He had $400 left. His credit cards had been frozen by the bank due to suspicious activity after his sudden termination and the subsequent panicked attempt to withdraw his 401k. The bathroom door opened, and Jessica stepped out. She wasn't wearing the faux fur coat anymore. She was wearing jeans and a hoodie, dragging a suitcase behind her. "Where are you going?" Derek asked, his voice hoarse. "I'm leaving, Derek," she said, not making eye contact. "My sister in Ohio said I can crash on her couch. Leaving now." Derek stood up, panic rising. "Babe, this is just a setback. I'm going to sue them. Wrongful termination. And I'm going to get half of Sarah's money. We're going to be rich. You just have to wait." Jessica laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "Rich? You're unemployed. You're homeless. And you're fighting a woman who has $1 billion. Do you know what kind of lawyers $1 billion buys? The kind that make people disappear. I'm not sticking around to be collateral damage. But I did this for us," Derek shouted. "I left her for you. You left her because you thought you were better than her," Jessica corrected, opening the door to the parking lot. "Turns out you were the baggage all along. Bye, Derek." The door slammed shut. Derek was alone. He paced the small room, his mind racing. Rage began to replace the fear. Sarah. This was all Sarah's fault. She had tricked him. She had humiliated him. She had hidden a fortune just to spite him. He grabbed his phone and dialed a number he had found on a billboard on the highway. Gavin Cross, attorney at law. "We fight for the little guy." "Cross here," a greasy voice answered. "Mr. Cross," Derek said, his voice trembling with manic energy. "My name is Derek Sterling. I'm going through a divorce. My wife just inherited $1.3 billion, and she's trying to cut me out. I want to sue her for everything she has." There was a pause on the line, then the sound of a lighter clicking. "Come to my office," Cross said. "The consultation is free. But if she's really worth that much, we aren't just going to sue her son. We're going to destroy her reputation until she pays us to stop." 2 days later, the story broke. Derek didn't have the money for a court battle, so he chose the court of public opinion. He went on The Daily Scoop, a trashy podcast with millions of listeners. "She played me," Derek said into the microphone, forcing a tear to roll down his cheek. "I supported her for years. I paid for her food, her clothes. She was depressed she wouldn't work, and the whole time she knew. She knew this money was coming. She waited until I was exhausted, until I broke, and then she kicked me out so she wouldn't have to share. I'm sleeping in a motel, guys. I'm eating canned beans while she's at the Langham." The internet, fickle and quick to judge, caught fire. Comments started rolling in. "Justice for Derek. Gold digger. Sarah. Eat the rich." In the penthouse of the Langham. Sarah watched the interview on a tablet. Her face was pale. "He's lying," she whispered. He's twisting everything. Arthur Pembroke took the tablet from her and turned it off. Of course he is lying. It is the only weapon he has left. He wants you to react. He wants you to get angry and offer him a settlement just to make him shut up. It is a blackmail tactic. People believe him, Sarah said, looking at the hate mail piling up in her new email inbox. They think I'm a monster. Let them talk, Pembroke said calmly. Public opinion does not decide court cases. Facts do. And Mr. Cross, his lawyer, has made a fatal error. What error? He filed a motion claiming equitable distribution based on fraudulent concealment, Pembroke said, opening a file. They are claiming you knew about the inheritance before the separation. We can prove you didn't. But more importantly, by filing that motion, they have opened up the discovery phase. Pembroke smiled, and the shark was back. They want to look at your finances, fine. But the law says discovery goes both ways. We get to look at his. He doesn't have anything, Sarah said. He's broke. He's broke now, Pembroke corrected. But for the last 3 years, he has been a mid-level manager with access to expense accounts and vendor contracts. And I have a team of forensic accountants who have been going through the Oakhaven books since you bought the building. Sarah looked at Pembroke. Did he steal? Sarah, Pembroke said softly. Men like Derek always think they are smarter than the system. We didn't just find theft. We found a felony. Martz. The mediation was scheduled for a rainy Thursday. It was held at Pembroke's firm, a glass fortress in downtown Chicago. Derek arrived wearing a new suit. Sarah suspected Gavin Cross had bought it for him on credit, expecting a massive payout. Cross walked in next to him, a short man with slicked-back hair and a cheap briefcase. They sat on one side of the massive oak table. Sarah sat on the other, flanked by Pembroke and 2 other silent lawyers. Let's cut the chase. Cross started leaning back in his chair. My client is suffering. Emotional distress, loss of reputation, financial ruin. We are prepared to drag this out for years. We will subpoena every text message, every email. We will paint Mrs. Sterling as a calculating fraudster in every paper from here to London. Or, Pembroke asked, bored. Or, Cross grinned, you cut a check today, $50 million, tax-free, and Derek signs an NDA and walks away. Derek smirked at Sarah. It's a drop in the bucket for you, Sarah. Just pay me. You owe me. I made you. Sarah stared at him. She remembered the nights she waited up for him while he was working late with Jessica. She remembered the way he looked at her when she counted the pennies. I don't owe you anything, Derek, Sarah said quietly, but I am willing to offer you a deal. We're listening, Cross said, rubbing his hands together. Pembroke slid a single black folder across the table. What's this? Derek asked, reaching for it. That, Sarah said, is a summary of the forensic audit conducted on your department at Oakhaven Logistics for the fiscal years 2023 through 2025. Derek froze. His hand hovered over the folder. Open it, Sarah commanded. Derek opened the folder. His face went from smug to grey in 3 seconds. You created 3 shell companies, Pembroke explained, his voice sounding like a judge reading a death sentence. Vanguard Supplies, J&D Consulting and Blue Water Logistics. You approved invoices from these companies for services that were never rendered. Then you routed the payments into a private offshore account in the Caymans. This is fabricated, Derek stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. It is not, Pembroke continued. We have the bank transfer records. We have the IP addresses used to set up the shell companies traced back to your home Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi Sarah paid for. Pembroke leaned forward. The total amount embezzled is $420,000. That is grand larceny. It is also wire fraud in the state of Illinois that carries a sentence of up to 15 years in prison. Gavin Cross looked at the documents, then at his client. He physically moved his chair away from Derek. "You didn't tell me this," Cross hissed. I meant to pay it back," Derek cried, looking at Sarah. "Sarah, please. It was just a loan. I was going to put it back once I got the VP bonus." "But you didn't," Sarah said. "You spent it. You spent it on dinners. You spent it on the car. You spent it on her." "Sarah, please," Derek begged, sliding out of his chair to his knees, a familiar position for him lately. "Don't turn this in. If you give this to the police, my life is over. I'll go to jail." "Yes," Sarah said. "You will?" "I'll sign the papers," Derek shouted. "I'll sign everything. I don't want the money. I'll walk away. Just don't call the cops. Please, for the love of God. Sarah, we were married." Sarah looked at him. This was the moment. She could destroy him right now. She could snap her fingers, and he would be in handcuffs within the hour. "Here is the deal," Sarah said coldly. She slid a document across the table. "This is a confession," Sarah said, "admitting to the embezzlement. And this other document is the divorce settlement. It states you get nothing, no alimony, no assets. You also agree to issue a public retraction of all your statements, admitting you lied about me, to extort money." "And if I sign?" Derek asked, tears streaming down his face. "You won't turn me in." "If you sign," Sarah said, "I will not personally hand this file to the district attorney today." "Okay," Derek sobbed. "Okay, I'll sign. Give me the pen." He scribbled his name frantically on both documents. He was shaking so hard, he almost ripped the paper. "Done," Derek gasped. "It's done. Can I go? I need to leave town." Pembroke took the documents and checked the signatures. "Everything seems to be in order." "Get out," Sarah said. Derek scrambled up and ran for the door, his lawyer trailing behind him, already calculating how to sue Derek for unpaid legal fees. When the door closed, the room was silent. "You know," Pembroke said, organizing the papers, "you promised you wouldn't personally hand the file to the DA today." Sarah stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city that was now her kingdom. "That's right, Arthur. I promised I wouldn't do it today." She turned back to him. "Send the file to the CEO of Oakhaven, Roger Caldwell. Tell him his new landlord found some irregularities in the books. It's his company that was stolen from. It's his legal duty to report a felony." Pembroke grinned. "A corporate obligation. Very clean. Caldwell hates Derek. He will file the police report before lunch." "Exactly," Sarah said. "Derek wanted to play the victim. Let him explain his victimization to a jury." Sarah picked up her purse. She didn't feel heavy anymore. The weight of the copper pennies was gone. "Where are we going?" Pembroke asked. "I have one more stop to make," Sarah said. "I need to visit an art gallery. I have a degree to finish." 2 weeks after the mediation, the snow in Chicago had turned to a dirty grey slush, but inside the private terminal at O'Hare International Airport. The air was filtered and warm. Derek sat in the economy waiting area of the main terminal, miles away from the luxury jets. He was wearing a hat pulled low and sunglasses, clutching a one-way ticket to Cancun. He had scraped together the last of his hidden cash, the few thousands the forensic accountants hadn't found yet, and planned to disappear. He figured if he could just get out of the country, He could start over. He'd hustle. He'd find another Sarah to leech off of. He checked the departure board. Boarding in 10 minutes. He let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for a month. He was going to make it. Sarah had kept her word. She hadn't gone to the police. Derek Sterling. The voice didn't come from a flight attendant. It came from behind him. Derek froze. He turned slowly to see 2 officers from the Chicago Police Department's Financial Crimes Division standing there, along with 2 TSA agents. "Yes," Derek squeaked. "You're under arrest for grand larceny, wire fraud, and embezzlement," the officer said, pulling out handcuffs. "What? No." Derek stood up, backing away, causing people in the waiting area to pull out their phones and start recording. "I have a deal. I signed a paper. My wife promised she wouldn't turn me in." "Your wife didn't turn you in, son," the officer said, spinning Derek around and slamming him against the wall. "Roger Caldwell from Oakhaven Logistics did. He filed the report yesterday morning. We've been tracking your credit card usage to find you. You have the right to remain silent." As Derek was dragged away kicking and screaming about how unfair life was, the live stream from a bystander's phone was already hitting the internet. Across town, Sarah stood in the center of a sun-drenched loft in the Arts District. The space smelled of fresh paint and possibility. Arthur Pembroke stood beside her holding a tablet, showing the news footage of Derek's arrest. "It appears Mr. Sterling's flight has been permanently delayed," Pembroke noted dryly. "Bail has been denied due to him being a flight risk. The district attorney is pushing for the maximum sentence. 12 years. Sarah glanced at the screen. She saw the man who had belittled her, the man who had made her count pennies, now looking small and pathetic in handcuffs. She felt a flicker of pity, but it was quickly extinguished by the memory of the cold wind in her old apartment. "It's over," she said softly. "It is," Pembroke agreed. "And now, Mrs. Sterling, or should I say, Ms. Hawthorne. What is the agenda?" Sarah turned away from the screen and looked at the canvas in front of her. It was huge, 6 feet tall. It was a chaotic mix of dark greys and blues at the bottom, rising into brilliant golds and vibrant reds at the top. It was the first painting she had finished in 6 years. "I'm changing my name back to Hayes," she said. "Hawthorne gave me the money, but Hayes is who I am, and I'm opening this place next month, the Hayes Foundation for the Arts." "A gallery. A scholarship program," Sarah corrected, "for artists who are struggling, for women who are told they have to choose between their passion and paying the rent. I want to be the safety net I never had." "A noble endeavor," Pembroke said, a genuine smile touching his lips. Silas would have hated it. He hated artists, which means it is the perfect use of his money. Sarah laughed. It was a real laugh, full of joy and lightness. "Arthur, yes, Sarah. Thank you for finding me in the laundromat." "I was just doing my job," he said, bowing slightly. "But I must admit, it has been the most entertaining probate case of my career." Sarah walked to the window. Down on the street, life was moving on. People were rushing to work, worrying about bills, falling in love and falling out of it. She was part of that world, but she was no longer crushed by it. She had walked through the fire of betrayal and come out the other side, not just rich in money, but rich in self-worth. Derek had tried to bury her, forgetting that she was a seed, and with a little bit of rain and $1.3 billion of sunshine, she had finally bloomed. Sarah picked up her paintbrush. The canvas wasn't finished yet, and neither was she. And that is the story of how Sarah Hayes turned her darkest moment into a $1 billion victory. Derek learned the hard way that you should never kick someone when they're down, because you never know when the tables might turn, or when that person might just buy the table, the building, and the bank you bank with. Sarah proved that the best revenge isn't just seeing your enemy fall, but rising so high that you can't even hear them hit the ground. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, justice, and sweet revenge, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that karma is real. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Let me know in the comments below. If you inherited $1.3 billion today, what is the first thing you would do? Would you buy a private island, or would you serve justice to someone who wronged you? I'll be reading your answers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.